Hi there, it's Marlene Helema from ImageMaven.com, and today I'm going to teach you all about histograms, and I'm going to show you how to do all that histogrammy stuff using the Lumix G9. Let's go! So what is the histogram? Well, the histogram is a graph of the brightness levels in your photo, or what other people like to call the tonal range of your photos. Now, the histogram is important because sometimes you can't get to a computer to check your file in detail, but if you look at the histogram on the back of your camera, you can tell if your image is properly exposed, and that's the key. I like to do everything in camera. I like to do pre-processing. I don't want to fix things in Photoshop or other image editing programs. I want to get it right in the camera, and understanding and learning how to use your histogram is key to that. So the Lumix G9 has a preview histogram, so you can see it before you take the photo, and you can also see it after you take the photo. So let me show you how to set both of those up. Here's how you set up the histogram in the Lumix G9. You go into the Tools menu and you go across to Monitor and Display. And in there you're going to scroll down to page 4 and you're going to see Histogram, and you turn it on. And when you do that, you get a histogram, and the default is it will end up in the middle of your picture. But you can just, drag it to anywhere you want in the frame, and that way it'll be kind of out of your way. So again, go into your menus, make sure you go into the Monitor Display, and scroll down to Histogram, and turn it on or off there. Now, if you don't see your histogram when you're taking your photo, you can turn it on and off by hitting the display button, okay? So if you don't see it, check your display button. The other place you see your histogram is in playback mode, so we get into playback mode, and there's the last picture we took. And if you don't see it, you hit the display button. Now there we have all the settings that we used on our camera, but if you go down to the next page, you'll see the histogram, and you can see it in red, green, blue, and the Y channel, and that's all the colors combined. In case you're wondering what else is in that playback menu, you've got your color settings, and you've got your white balance, focal length. Anything you want to know about the photo you just took is in the playback menu, and just hit display if you don't see it. Alright, so let's set up our scene. We've got our scene set up here. I know it's a bit boring, it's just the studio and the X-Rite Color Checker Passport, but hey, it works for me. So we can see in our histogram here that we have a full tonal range. And let's just take a picture and see what happens. Uh-oh, the histogram showed that it was okay, and yet when we play it back, we can see that it was underexposed. Let's go back into play mode again. Now here, you see that the histogram preview is yellow? Think of that yellow as a caution sign. It's like yield, don't go any faster because there's something wrong with this picture. Now, of course, 1/500th of a second in the studio here is probably pushing it for the kind of lighting that I'm using. So we're going to have to change something. So let's change our shutter speed and let's see what happens here. Ah, did you notice that it changed into a white histogram? Let's back it up a couple of stops. There we go. 1/25th of a second it's yellow, and an 1/80th of a second it's white. So now let's take another picture. And now the picture shows up. Let's play it. You can see that the histogram is much more balanced. It goes all the way across. Let's look at the previous photo. Underexposed, dark. Histogram is on the left side. It's climbing the walls. It's underexposed. This is a normally exposed histogram. Let's try the other end of the spectrum. Let's overexpose this. Okay, let's keep going and see what happens. Can we turn it yellow again? 1/4 of a second, it's white. And 1/2 a second, it's definitely yellow. Let's see what happens when we take a photo. What do you think is going to happen? Overexposed. Now the histogram doesn't actually look too bad here. Let's compare it to the other shots. See, this one is our normally exposed photo. This is our underexposed photo. Let's do extreme overexposure. Let's do it like, maybe 2 seconds. 2 seconds should do it. Overexposure for sure. See that histogram? Let's check it out. Histogram is climbing the wall on the right side. The right side of the histogram is the overexposure. It's the highlight side. So 2 seconds at f22, overexposure. That's overexposure too, but not as much. And this is normally exposed, underexposed. Okay? So the histogram will indicate your exposure. In preview mode, you're going to see if it's yellow, maybe your exposure isn't quite right, and you need to change some things to bring it back into an acceptable range. So if it's white, it's good. It's in an acceptable range. Another thing to keep in mind about the histogram is that it is a JPEG preview histogram. So if you're shooting RAW files, the histogram may look a little bit different on your RAW file when you open that RAW file up in your RAW editing software. Now, of course, there's other tools in the camera, highlight and shadow clipping warnings. You can use those too. You can also use those in software. Now, if you're a JPEG shooter, getting your exposure right in camera is critically important. You can't really fix an overexposed file if it's a JPEG. You can fix it a little bit, but really, it's not like if you shoot a RAW file. If you shoot a RAW file, you've got exposure insurance. You're able to take the ends of that histogram and pull them back into a normal range. But if you shoot JPEGs or if you shoot video, which I know a lot of you are, you want to get that exposure right in the camera. You don't want to have to mess with overexposed JPEGs and overexposed video. You're just going to be pulling your hair out. Now, there's one other thing I want to show you about exposure and getting your exposure right in the camera. Let's say you wanted to add a bit more light. Okay, so we'll take this photo and let's say we do want to have a bit more in the highlights. What you can do then is push your exposure compensation button, and that on this camera is on the top, sometimes known as the plus minus, and you can add light that way. So you can see that it goes up in 1/3 of a stop increments. So I'm doubling the amount of light here, and let's take another photo, play them both back. This is the photo I just took, and this is the one before. So you can see that I added some light, and it definitely shows up in the background, and it shows up also on our histogram. And you can see here that it says +1. So if you need some further adjustments and you want to shoot in aperture priority, shutter priority, or program mode, or even intelligent auto mode, you can use the exposure compensation button. And every camera pretty much has one of those. So if your exposure is overexposed or underexposed, you can do separate adjustments using that. Okay, and that will also save you time working on the computer. If you want to learn more about exposure compensation, make sure you check out the video that I've made. Now, setting up your histogram and figuring all out your exposure, it's not something you have to change a lot. If you're shooting in the same lighting conditions, chances are you'll set up your exposure once and then you'll just shoot your sequence of photos. I mean, this is what happens to me when I'm shooting at the skate park. If it's a bright sunny day and no clouds and the lighting hasn't changed, I shouldn't have to change my exposure unless, of course, I'm suddenly going into the shade or the shadows or my subject is backlit. So the histogram will keep you on track with your exposure if the lighting conditions change. Typically, I only use it in post-view mode. Like, I don't set it up in preview mode. I find it's distracting for me personally. I don't like that histogram square thing in the way. I mean, I know you can move it out of the way, but I don't really need it once I have a couple of baseline exposures of my scene. Same goes for landscapes. Unless the light is changing drastically, you won't need to show that histogram all the time in your viewfinder. You can just check your photos after the fact. Now, clearly I'm passionate about pre-processing files. Can you tell? I'm like crazy about this. And I'm crazy about shooting JPEGs. I know, like, I kind of went backwards. I went JPEG, RAW, JPEG, and now I do sometimes RAW, but to be honest, I'm really pleased with the quality that I'm getting from my JPEGs out of my Lumix cameras, and that's because I take care of all that stuff ahead of time. I don't want to spend a lot of time doing post-production. What I do like doing in post-production is adding crazy filters and doing fun stuff in software like Luminar. I love doing that stuff, but I don't want to worry about, oh, is this image exposed properly? Oh, I have to tweak my white balance. Oh no, like, what do I want? I get all that stuff done in camera, and that saves me time and allows me to be more creative in other areas. I gotta nail the camera stuff. You gotta do this. And yes, I am passionate, and I want you to be too. All right, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. It's Marlene Helema from ImageMaven.com. Check out all my other Lumix G9 videos and all my other beginners to photography videos, because you know what? I want to help you to take better pictures. That's my goal.